right, welcome, blockheads. It is Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. It is 9:34 East Coast, USA. This is episode 94 of Business on the Block, the coming blockchain boom. In the next few minutes, we're going to discuss with you President Trump announcing a new crypto exchange, why blockchain is now officially predicted to explode higher in the next 5 years, and OpenAI finally admits it is a profit-driven company. We're bringing you the latest insights from the intersection of business, blockchain, and AI. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Hi, everyone.
And Mike Neubauer.
Good morning.
I'm going to take us directly into story number one. All right, it looks like President Trump is announcing a new crypto exchange in America. The Trump family is launching a crypto exchange called World Liberty Financial. This platform will be run by the former president's sons, Don Trump Jr. and Eric Trump. Donald Trump has pledged to make the United States, quote, the crypto capital of the planet, end quote. There's also some controversy a few minutes ago because a lot of folks didn't like the muddiness of his explanation of what exactly this thing's going to look like. So we're going to get some commentary. First, Mike, we'll start with you, closest to the U.S. crypto capital of Miami, I guess. What are your thoughts around what Trump is doing? What does this mean? What should we be taking away from this?
I mean, is Miami still the crypto capital of the country? I don't even know anymore. I think what he needs to do is download all of his ideas into some sort of an AI system in case one of these bullets actually hit him. But I love it. Well, I guess another bullet hit him, I should say. I actually love it. I mean, I don't know if he's using this just as a platform to tap into, I guess a specific segment of the voter bloc that is very conscious of where crypto is. And, obviously there is hope of some sort of a decentralized economic system. And I don't know if he's feeding into that or he'll actually come through on some of these things. But a few of the discussions involving crypto, I feel like he's been very pro crypto in his policies and what he plans to roll out, assuming he gets into office the second time. So it's going to be interesting to see it play out. As obviously an American, I'd love to see this be the crypto hub. I'd love to see, just this sort of replace some of the existing systems that we have in place. But I also am a realist and, know how many toes that's going to step on. So whether it comes true or not, I guess is yet to be seen. I think that Eric and Donald Jr., they definitely know the space well. So that's going to help. And look, again, everything that I'm seeing from the crypto space around the globe, people are realizing that this is the future, whether we like it or not. And it's really just going to be a matter of, can we get out of our own way and just really pave the path to make this possible?
Michelle, as our non-American on the panel here, if you will, I know your thoughts on Donald. What do you think about what he's trying to do here with crypto?
When I was reading this story, I was thinking that originally 2019, the Donald didn't think that crypto was a very good idea, that the American dollar was, the be all and end all of the world. And now he's once again on an issue has, done a complete reversal of his opinion. He's the ultimate crypto bro, though, don't you think? I mean, come on, let's think back to the 2021, 2022, where all the crypto bros were, I'm going to take it to the moon. Well, Donald isn't. It's just going to be the best planet of crypto, the best place on the planet. So he's good at talking things up. He's good at getting attention. He's good at people following him, and what I'd like to know is if he loses the election, would this become one of the best and most well-orchestrated crypto rugs in history?
I actually am going to back you on that. So this is my view. I think that you guys remember Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss?
Yes.
So the Trump sons are the new Winklevoss twins, right? This is basically back in the day, the Winklevosses were in Facebook and then Zuckerberg stole it and then they went into Gemini crypto. Right now, there's money to be made in crypto. And I think that the Trump family is not stupid. They know how that banking game works. This is their play. I don't actually think it's Donald per se. Now, he is the quintessential sales guy for sure, and he's a family guy. So that's what he's doing for them right now. But this is going to be whether or not he wins the election or not. I agree with you completely, Michelle. If Donald Trump becomes the president again in the United States, this is gangbusters. It will change the whole game for crypto, our global place in the world as America. If he doesn't, I mean, you can already see the SEC's positioning on this. The government in America is predicated on the strength of the dollar. I think this is all about whether you like this concept or not, rides on this election. And Mike, to your point, there are continued assassination attempts here, which is nuts, and that's another conversation. But there's a business angle in all of this. And so I really think, are the Trump family pulling a fast one? No, they're making a Trump-type bet, as they always do. And whether or not it works it's almost like a hedge against him losing the election.
Well, I've made this sort of argument, I guess since the pandemic, actually, that, you know, people economically are struggling, right? Like, it's not an easy time around the world. So crypto as this new shiny object, this new shiny toy. Yeah, people who got in early, they were able to make some money, cash out. But we've obviously seen, you know, things like the crypto winter and all these other pieces. When people have more money at their disposal, things like crypto tend to be on the rise. So again, assuming history sort of repeats itself economically and he does get back into office, I expect to see, not anytime soon, but at some point, sort of a reversal on the way that the economies around the world are sort of, you know, run. Now, again, will that lead to a surge in crypto, or will there be a new shiny object that people invest in? I don't know. But all I know is that you put more money in people's pockets that they have disposable income on, and things like crypto tend to sort of rise.
Well, I'm going to comment on that, Mike, and not to play Wall Street guy, but if the world does move towards crypto, which I think it does, and it will eventually, and I have no problem with that, it causes massive inflation in the rest of the world that's based on the US dollar. So like if the dollar goes down in value and you have your savings, your 401k, your superannuation plans, it's all in dollars based stuff, that's going to become worth less. So
well, if you take that and you move it into another medium, such as crypto, which is sort of what people were doing, and we've talked about how Bitcoin could be the new savings account on the show before, right? Now you're sort of hedging on this new technology. You're migrating your savings, not all of it. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. But let's not forget, some of these things are still relevant to the US dollar. In fact, the US dollar coin is a stable coin that, you know, is sort of on par with this. But, you know, I'm going to sort of retract to something that we talked about, I guess, a couple months back when the oil deal between Saudi Arabia and the US sort of lapsed. What's stopping Saudi Arabia from creating a coin and trading oil on crypto? Nothing. So I think that's a hell of a play for them. But if they start understanding that there's an opportunity at a macro level for that, it helps out arguably everybody, right? I mean, you're talking about transparency. You're talking about a global adoption of the technology at that point, something that's decentralized. So things are not really in one place, organized by one superpower or one government body. You're talking about a potential opportunity, not just in oil, but, you know, potentially natural gas, which is something that the U.S. has the ability to export, or any manufactured goods. So this is where I would see somebody like him coming in from the business perspective and saying, you know, there is some sort of a potential here to get, you know, the globe, you know, more adaptable to crypto. And, you know, what a stance it would be to make the U.S. the nucleus of it all.
Yeah,
but that said, I think that if he wins and he's president come January next year, is it really right for, I get the parallels and being crypto friendly, but can he really push crypto ahead of the US dollar as the way in which people should transact when you're president? Because how that would undermine the US economy, I would have thought would be dangerous territory for him to wade into.
So I'm going to comment on that, Michelle. I agree with you. Of course, the answer is no. Mike's right. However, power has always had this. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just explaining how life works.
Sure.
There's a movement right now in America to disallow members of the U.S. Congress from trading stocks, because for many years, many of the leading Congress people here in the States are becoming massive multimillionaires off of a piddly salary because they approve and disapprove FDA things, and they know what goes on in the back room. It's not insider trading if you're making the rules around the industries. And so my point is, this is another one of that. This is like the president should not have any influence over, U.S. policy to help their investments. If I had that opportunity, on Wall Street, that would have been great. So yeah, I agree with you, but it's wrong, but it's going to happen if he's president.
Well, again, I'm going to try to look at this from the lens of it doesn't necessarily need to combat the U.S. dollar or work against it. It needs to work with it. And again, if there's a way that the U.S. dollar can ultimately be invested into this crypto world and be used for specific purposes, I mean, in a way that sort of alleviates a lot of these, tinfoil hat conspiracies about where all this money goes that we give the government anyway. There is a solution here. And again, it doesn't need to be controversial. The only controversy is going to be, how does it affect Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio? And at that point, you're talking about, again, stepping on massive toes that have a lot of pull and a lot of ways just to be a mosquito on your ass all day. So I don't know where all this ends up. I just like the direction and at least the conversation that it's moving in. Who knows if it's ever going to come true or whatever. But, again, it's really validating the technology. And I think from a business show like what we do here, it's important that we note that, even at the minimal level, all the way up to, government entities, potential government entities, have the ability to adopt this technology.
I agree with you, Mike. That's the takeaway.
And I also think too, though, that, there is nothing that the Donald does that is, altruistic. He sees that there's an opportunity to make money. He sees that it's something new. That's the only reason why he's there. He doesn't necessarily think any of the things we think about why it's a good idea. He just sees.
But yet he's the only president to leave office poorer than when he came in.
Michelle, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. All right.
Yeah.
I'm
Trust me, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you.
I'm taking us to story number 2. All right. This is our headline story for the week, because this is actually, there's some repercussions here. Blockchain market research has been released showing that blockchain as an industry is expected to reach $403 billion by 2030. That's within the next 5 years. There'll be $1 billion valuation jump of almost 60% on this thing. So they're saying, according to this new research, growth will be fueled by 2 main sectors. Growth in blockchain is going to be driven by 2 things. Number 1, demand for secure transactions in the finance sector. That includes banking, insurance, anything with the numbers.
Crypto. And
number 2, demand to prevent data tampering in the healthcare sector. So your personal medical records, if you want to go to your doctor, there's been a continual problem of people getting hacked and their medical data getting taken from them. So because of those 2 growing demands, this company is saying that blockchain market will project it to reach $403.36 billion. And this is something that is near and dear to the heart of this show for a lot of reasons. We've always maintained here that blockchain isn't cool. It saves companies money. It's a better mousetrap. So let's get some thoughts around this. Michelle, we're going to start with you. You've worked very closely, as you have, Mike, as well, with many blockchain companies. What are your thoughts around this prediction on blockchain's market valuation?
Well, I mean, we've talked about this, haven't we? That and as you mentioned in the summary to this article, that eventually, once security is improved, this will be the way that all data will be stored in the future. Now, I'm not sure how many years it will take to get to that point, but I think that it's it's an inevitability that things like our medical records, our passports, our driver's license, visas to countries, all of that stuff, we will be able to show proof of our ownership of that on the blockchain. So it's only natural that the first step of that has to be companies starting to store their transactions and their data on the blockchain in order for that to roll eventually down to the consumer.
Mike, what are your thoughts around this? This is your daily bread.
Well, I'm going to go on quite a bit of a rant. So if you want to throw your 2 cents in, go for it.
So I'm going to make the point quickly that this article talks a lot about blockchain, and I agree with the numbers, but does not talk about decentralization. And you've often mentioned, Mike, in the past, there's a difference between centralization and transparency, meaning you can have blockchain, but it can also be under the thumb of a big company. And I think that's where this is going.
So I'm going to go on my diatribe here for a second, and I'm actually going to take both sides of the coin, and I'm going to dive into it a little deep. First of all, this is a very heavy article, right? The information in here, it's very technical, very technical. So, don't be intimidated by it, but just sort of a recap on the surface of it. So, Michelle, you're right.
It's a 2 coffee cup article. I'm warning you now if you want to read it.
We're intellectuals here.
Maybe a bathroom break in between too. The stance I'll take on at first is to, sort of piggyback off of what Michelle had said. This is a replacement of the filing cabinet for efficiency. Now let's talk about efficiency. Efficiency has been really the root nucleus of what AI and blockchain has really brought to the table with this technology, right? Whether people or businesses realize it yet, the time saving and the efficiency that it provides is really going to be the underlying benefit of adopting this technology into your daily practice, whether it's personal or business. Now, with respect to the blockchain component, companies, medical records, they not only have a secure storage of their data, but it's a consistent storage of their data, right? You look at something like medical records. I mean, I walk into my kid's pediatrician office and they literally have an entire room filled with shelves and files. Hard files. Now, God forbid something happens to that place, a flood, a fire, a hurricane, a dinosaur, an alien invasion. Those files disappear. They're gone. There's no record of them. They might have digitized some of that, but even that's sitting on a server somewhere. The elements minted to a block in a blockchain are literally there forever. And therefore, anybody in the future can always access them. They can always pull the timestamps on when they were out, when they were added, the user who added them. All of this is that transparency endeavor. Now, there's an issue with that in security, because that's a problem that we haven't figured out yet. As many things as blockchain has good, there's still a lot of issues with respect to security, and maybe not necessarily making the transparent component or benefit as transparent with something such as either business records or medical records. Where does this all end up in the other side of the coin of my little rant here? Well, the thing that I hate about this article is the prediction. 403 billion by 2030. We've seen this technology evolve and show to show on a weekly basis, and yet they're out here giving predictions over the next 6 years. I hate it. I don't believe it. I don't want to even set a path that's a possibility. I want companies to slowly adopt the technology, understand its value, and then we'll see that surge and that merger with AI. Because I think that, again, AI building some of these pieces adds to that efficiency component and makes this a little bit more applicable. Will that be the story of 2025 or 2030? I don't know, but I'm not going to bank on that. 6 years is where the goal line is here.
All right, I'm going to give a quick.
Can I just jump in one quickly and say, Please. Oh my goodness, is this the first time, Red Letter Day, that I agree with everything that Mike said?
Hold on, let me mark the calendar.
Yeah.
You didn't hear me under my breath saying Trump is going to win, so maybe not.
That was the other story. I said this story.
Go ahead, Mark.
So I'm thinking back in the business of like trading stocks or banking, there's always a back office section, right? After a trade happens, you have to match it. When the banking records, you deposit money, it has to be put into your account and tracked. The back office piece is always the most expensive part of the financial world, massively. It's like 3 times as expensive as whatever the business front end to help run it. And so the carrying costs drop massively by adopting a blockchain backend solution. So my point is, whether we like it or not, it makes business more efficient. We know this. And for that reason alone, this is all going to happen. To your point, Mike, about the speed of adoption, yeah, you could argue that you don't want to have it be another, NFT run because this is a way to make quick money. But I think we're past that. I think the companies are recognizing that they can basically have a better solution at half the cost or less to run their current business. It's the same way AI is removing the front end. Blockchain is going to remove the back end. And so this is a way for companies to get more efficient and save money and become profitable. And all these for-profit, massive mega entities, these global, they're all going to do it. So 5 years, is that a reasonable time frame? Probably. I think this is accurate, spot on. I expect blockchain uptake will continue to accelerate, but I don't think it's a problem, Mike.
I don't think it's a problem either. I hate the timeline component of it. But we've always discussed back in the day, Web3 was the term, right? Like the next evolution of the internet. Well, when the internet first came around, it wasn't so much the adoption of businesses that really, sprung it. But nowadays, you can't have a business without having some sort of an internet presence, whether social media, website, whatever. So, ultimately, it may become the same type of demand. It also may become the same type of regulatory body, which scares the living hell out of me. But, maybe if you start a business, you actually have to show your accounting on some sort of a blockchain that gives access to somebody to review it, whether it's the, IRS or any of these other governing bodies. And at that point, we're going to see the market evolve to a new technology. So, again, bottom line is that, I really feel that there's a value here. I really feel there's a consistent value here, not only for, internal operations of a business, but also B2B collaboration efforts as well. And we talked about the marketing side of this. That's a bit of a different conversation, but these are all elements that blockchain bring to the table as part of its benefits.
I think the term blockchain itself is such a big, overarching, wide term. It's like sales or even, business. There's lots of versions of blockchain. And I don't just mean the types of blockchains. I mean applications. So I don't believe we're at the point where we've discovered all the ways to apply it. To your point, Mike, the internet itself, I think all content will eventually be on a blockchain. And no one's going to talk about that or think about that right now. But if you want to protect your intellectual property rights, then that's the only way to do it. So my point is there's other ways to apply blockchain that people are starting to figure out and starting to say. We talked last week about crowdsourcing your hardware if you run a giant network like a data center. These types of solutions, big companies are notably, famously slow to realize. But recessions tend to drive people's perception pretty quickly. We're losing money. What do we need to be doing here? How quickly the world adapted to COVID and we were all working from home within a week, that was impossible prior. Blockchain is going to be the same kind of thing where how do we save money? Oh, there's this thing called blockchain. Let's figure it out.
I think one of the hindrances, though, at the moment is that there were a lot of really big companies that jumped in early 2021, 22 and got their fingers burnt. So they're a little bit shyer now to jump back in again with both feet, if you know what I mean. They might be testing the waters or that kind of thing. But, even the Starbucks program, I'm not sure if that is even going anymore in the way it was when they first set it up in terms of a passport instead of a wallet, et cetera, et cetera. So, I think that it will be some hesitancy, which is why I agree with Mike on the not too sure about putting in the timelines and the dollar values, because I think once it becomes fully adopted, it will grow really quickly. But I think that there's the crypto winter that we've just had and the crash and, the way that people lost so much money on the NFTs and stuff has made some CEOs and some larger companies a bit hesitant to jump back in again without a good reason.
Can we three agree that the obstacle has been the wallets problem?
It's one of them. There's been attempts. There's been attempts to try to fix that, but again, just like somebody had a screen name when they got logged on to AOL, there's an onboarding process that's that's going to come, and we predicted it on this show that's a solution that the hardware could solve. Right. I mean, it doesn't, and to the point that you just made, Michelle, Starbucks Odyssey still exists. And the reason you probably don't hear a lot about it is because it's almost become second nature to those people who who participated in it every day. There's not that same hype that there was when it first launched, which tells me that, you know, the technology is just second nature at this point. Whether people realize what it is or not is really the goal that we want to get to. Again, how many people know how phone camera works? They just know that they log in, they point it at their ass, and they hit the button. Right? They don't know how, you know, how it takes the picture, where it stores, where it goes. How is it possible they can have 10,000 ass pictures on their phone? Like, they don't understand that component of it. They don't care. They just know that it's that app that makes them waffles.
Yep.
It must be where I've gone wrong. I don't have enough ass pictures on my phone.
Yeah,
but I think, you know, onboarding and security are two of the major issues, and they've been major issues since the beginning. And while I think the onboarding is getting better, I think the security of stuff hasn't really jumped as far ahead as it needs to be.
So I view that as a seesaw, Michelle. Onboarding is going to be simplified by centralization, which makes the problem on the other end transparency. Like the way to solve the wallet problem, quote unquote, is going to be to just centralize it. The 1-800 number's back where you can call if you lose your password. And that defeats one of the benefits of
purpose
blockchain.
of decentralization. Right. Yeah.
But I still think that go ahead.
Not necessarily, right? I mean, you can argue that Amazon is the most centralized company in the world, right? You can find anything and everything, and it arrives on your door before 2 p.m. You know, but the way that the security element of this, I think, is really the most important piece. But again, I'm old enough to remember when the internet came out, security was a big thing there too. You didn't know who you were talking to. God forbid you put your credit card number in there. You know, you always had the hold your breath to make sure that the transaction occurred, and you didn't just, you know, fund some prince in, you know,
Nigeria,
Nigerian country or something. But look, you know, like any new technology, there's always going to be people who understand it faster and therefore try to exploit it. And then before you know it, you're going to have insurance companies that can sort of back certain elements. You can have secure features like, I hate to use the company because we know that they've kind of gone a little bit centralized, but something like a ledger, where it's almost like a digital storage of your storage, a digital layer that basically adds a security level. It's not fireproof. It's nothing that, you know, most people are going to truly understand or adopt, but I believe that when you see opportunity leads to innovation, and innovation allows for a solution that can be provided to the average everyday user who doesn't want to understand how their camera works on their phone.
My big fear, though, is like Ledger, just like MetaMask, just like Coinbase. They all started out as independent, transparent, decentralized. And today they're all an appendage, if you will, of the government.
And Amazon started off as a dude selling books in his garage, right? So, like, you know, everything has a starting point. It grows to this exponentially high, crazy place. But this is where the free market allows for options and different opportunities. And this is where I think the value of this type of technology holds up. You know, if something fails or something gets too big, I mean, when Coinbase started playing ball with the SEC, what happened to them? People started just jumping ship. You know, they went to other places. They found other exchanges. And that's the value of this that I think scares the living hell out of the governments, not just here in the US, but around the world, as part of this modicum of financial control that they feel they're losing.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, this comes back to geopolitics, but let's not get into that. I want to take us into story number 3, if that's okay. OpenAI is about to become...
That is not story number 3.
OpenAI to become a for-profit. For those,
yeah, of course it is, because he just got busted driving a $4 million car.
OpenAI is seeking new funding at a $150 billion valuation. That's B. But the new funding is contingent upon changing its corporate structure. For those who have a long memory, OpenAI may, you know that it began as a nonprofit looking to build AI to benefit humanity, but it has been operating as a capped for-profit organization for the last few years. There's new investors now, and they are demanding that it become a full for-profit to give it the money it needs. As a quick reminder for those who aren't tracking this, OpenAI is burning money so fast, they're going to go out of business if they don't get this funding. So we'll start with thoughts around this one. Mike, this is going to be your lead because you had a picture of him driving a Ferrari. What was it? A Lamborghini?
No, it's a Regatta. But anyway, once again, we're in Groundhog's Day. OpenAI has a lot of money. They have no money. They have a lot of money. They have no money. They need investors. They need users. They have a lot of users. They have a lot of investors. They have Microsoft backing them. They have Microsoft bailing ship. This is the story as old as time, at least in AI's time. Frankly, look, I don't care if they're for profit or not. You know, if I would actually just be, you know, sort of curious on if they ever go public, which I think they would sort of have to at some point. Do they go public here in the US? Do they go public in multiple exchanges around the world? I don't know what the best answer is. And I think a lot of that is really on pause until regulation comes into the picture. I think, you know, if we've learned anything in our, you know, thousands of episodes that we've talked about this crap, everybody's willing to throw money at AI. They're never not going to have the ability to raise capital. Whether he goes out and buys a $4 million car with that money or not, I mean, maybe that's on him. You know, he never really wanted it for the money. He was never in it for the money. Bullshit until the Scrooge McDuck pile of money lands on his doorstep.
You make $4 million cars. That's interesting. Michelle, what do you think about this? OpenAI, they're a for-profit. We kind of knew it. They're going to have to change their corporate structure. What does this mean?
So November 2022, ChatGPT was launched. Was it January 2023? In our episodes, we talked about how eventually they're going to have to become a for-profit business instead of a not-for-profit, because we were like, how's that going to work? Because, you know, there's a lot of money in this. So we have been talking about this for a very long time. And so I agree with, again, oh my goodness, what Mike said.
What a day.
It's red letter day.
What's going on here?
I don't know.
Tuesday, that's the problem.
That Trump story in, otherwise it would have been a clean sweep. It cannot continue pretending that it's a not-for-profit organization. And as we know, a lot of the problems that occurred in those early 6 to 8 months was about the competing interests of a profit and a not-for-profit organization, and how running them is very different.
It's a sharp-looking car. I got to be honest with you. Yeah. So here's my thoughts.
$1 million.
You guys may remember, Michelle, one of your second favorite person, Elon Musk, had called this out first, way back when, that he would never have funded this thing with his money, by the way, at the start, had it been a for-profit. It was the whole goal was it was to help humanity, and Sam was the problem. When anyone like Skeever raised the issue before about he didn't like the safety or lack of safety features, they ended up firing him. So Sam has been driving this thing as a for-profit, hell-bent on making as much money as possible, including getting in bed with Microsoft from the beginning. I really think that they are going to IPO at some point, Mike, to your point. And just as a quick side note, Microsoft, which is basically the controlling factor here, is not on the New York Stock Exchange. They are on the NASDAQ, and those two exchanges have always battled here in the States as to who gets the hot new companies. And so I'd be curious where OpenAI goes public, but it would definitely not be, it would be in the States, is my opinion. Anyway, I think that it goes for profit. Everyone knew it. They now can officially go after more money. This thing just becomes a machine. This could well be the biggest company in the world in no time. Like, this is going to be, this opens the floodgates for endless streams of cash. Who wouldn't put money into this thing if they know they can get it out?
What's the longest a company who is a unicorn and has gone on to be huge before they made their first profit? How many years?
I'm going to guess Amazon, but that's just from, I have no idea. We can look at this up.
I just wonder, because I think that's what we're talking about here, aren't we? Yes, they will be huge. Yes, they could become the biggest company on the planet. But at some point in some century from now, they're going to have to make money.
Qualcomm and Amazon both ran at a loss officially just on funding for a decade. Both took 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
I would argue that Tesla is not far behind.
Well, Tesla makes money.
Well,
sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, but they're not living
depends
off
if Elon dips his fingers in the cookie jar or not.
But they're not living off pure VC funding right now is the point.
No.
Yeah.
And OpenAI is definitely. And the
So
numbers.
they've been, what are we, 2 years in? So they've still got 8 years to go then.
I don't think the AI world I don't think it goes for 8 more years. Like
we talked
before they make money. You mean?
no. Yes, I think that if they're still running at a loss 8 years from now, they're out of business. Investors aren't going to wait 8 years.
We talked about efficiency earlier and how AI is just an efficiency tool. If they can't figure out how to use their own damn tool to figure out how to make their own money, then that's a big problem.
But the thing is, they are making money. What do they have? 11 million paying users. So they may not be making the money on the scale of that they want $150 billion that they can pay back right away. But if they want to spin this into a smaller thing, there's money here. Like you've found yourself a market. This is just like entrepreneurship 101. You have a market. You have people with money who are willing to pay for the service. You just got to figure out now what's the best fit. They're still trying to.
The money itself is going into the infrastructure. We touched on that last week, right? You can't just randomly throw up a nuclear power plant to power this type of technology overnight, right? Like that's going to take billions of dollars in order to do that kind of infrastructure on a global basis. So, that's where the money's really going, but that has a shelf life of 30, 50 years or whatever. And during that time frame, they will be in the black. Like they can't stay in the red forever, because I would argue that, in addition to $4 million cars, they're pumping a lot of this money into infrastructure.
Agreed. All right, I'm going to move us into the speed round, if that's all right with you guys. The purpose of the speed round is we're going to be brief commentary on stories that are kind of like the B-roll, if you will, of what we thought happened during the week. As follow-up, OpenAI has unveiled their new Strawberry model this week, which is basically long time rumored. The Strawberry model is trained with reinforcement learning. Its chain of reasoning enables a more substantive, multifaceted analysis, which basically means it thinks a long time before it gives you an answer, and then it gives you a better answer. It can't yet browse the web. It can't yet analyze files, and it doesn't generate images. But the early reports from everyone, including TechCrunch, which is where this article comes from, and they tested it, it is notably better in the responses it gives. Lack of hallucination, much tighter, much more thorough. Thoughts around this one, Michelle? We'll start with you. What do you think of OpenAI's new Strawberry model?
Well, when I saw the headline, I thought to myself, really? Does it?
Mike's right again.
Fact check itself. What does that mean exactly? Like, does it fact check itself against the incorrect facts? Is a question I had. And I mean, obviously, it needs to be connected to the internet and be able to do all the other things that we're talking about. I get that it's new. I get that it's, just starting to unveil. Interesting to note that in writing the article about it, they were prepared to give TechCrunch information, but not early access to the system for them to test it themselves. So I think that in and of itself is a bit of a red flag for me. Ultimately, will it be better? Probably, but the fact that they're saying that it fact checks itself is a big red flag for me.
Mike, I'm sure you got thoughts around this. OpenAI's new model, which is officially called OpenAI 01.
Well, similar to your thought, Michelle, my first thought was, the fact check component. And, so you're telling me that the initial output is not as accurate. But I also had another thought where if it's not connected to the internet, it cannot look up things in real time. It cannot, do its research in order to quote unquote fact check itself. That tells me that something has been programmed with it already that allows it to either contradict its previous statement or give a layer of security in order to fact check it, which tells me there's still a lot of fingerprints on this technology.
So as a big picture thinker,
dirty fingerprints.
I actually don't really care. We know this thing is going to get better fast and be great. It's just it's unbelievable how quickly it's improving. OpenAI is doing a good job on the technical side. Now, my big takeaway from this is the employer replacement machine. My opinion that this is how this is going to be applied. And conversely, on the flip side, it is the entrepreneurial one ring of power. I think that you need to look at this thing and be like, this is how it's all going to go. What am I going to do with this tool? Second story, speed round. which is actually going to overlap. And I'm going to ask you guys to don your tinfoil for a moment because we are actually going into conspiracy corner here. Amazon is telling employees to return to office 5 days a week. They previously required their employees to be in the office only 3 days a week post-COVID, but this new policy starts January 2nd. They want everyone in now all the time, and as part of the process, Amazon will be reviewing each team to identify any roles that are no longer required. Mike, we'll start with you on this one. Your showered cap.
Oh, let me use Mike's words first. Let me say this is just bullshit.
Michelle, you can start. Go.
Took the words right out of your mouth, did I, Mike?
Go for it, Michelle. Let's hear it. Why?
You go first.
Look, as you said on a different story today, this was the position that companies took prior to COVID, that it was impossible, absolutely impossible, I tell you, for employees to be able to work from home. And then suddenly, during COVID, when we were in lockdown all over the world, suddenly if companies didn't get with the picture of people being able to work at home, they realised then they didn't have a workforce anymore for most things other than things like garbage collection and, hospitals. So I think it's just absolute BS, and it is just a way of controlling people, checking up on people, looking to see if people are or aren't doing enough work. And it's, I don't know. They're making so much money. I just don't get why they have to be like that.
Mike, what do you think? Amazon wants them back in 5 days a week, not 3. What's the story?
Well, I don't think it's just Amazon. And, my wife got notice this week that Fridays, when she used to be able to work from home, she's now required to go back into the office. And, while it was met with a lot of grunts and disdain, in my head as a business guy, I'm starting to reevaluate the purpose of actually going in anyway. And when COVID first started, I actually had a pivot to a business model that I was doing where I was actually setting up remote workplace integration using cloud-based servers, teaching employees and employers how to, basically manage meetings and really conduct themselves in this online environment. So I'll use my wife as the guinea pig, and when she watches this later, she'll crack me in the skull with something that I'll probably have to replace my tinfoil shower cap with. But the efficiency, and again, that's really my word of the day here, of working from home is not only beneficial to an employer, but more importantly, the employee. They get to be home when their kids come home from school. They get to not sit in traffic for 3 hours and, waste all this gas and all this money and all this time and frustration sitting on the road when they could easily be doing other things, making dinner, playing with their kids, doing homework with their kids, spending time with the family, whatever it is. Meanwhile, the work gets done. One of the things that always stuck out to me, especially, and I'm going to use my wife and her company in this equation as my example, when they worked remote, they actually demanded more of them. And they were able to meet those demands. And now they have to go back into the office, which again sucks out 3 hours of their life, and still meet those same deadlines, those same demands. All, by the way, at in equal pay. There's pros and cons to this whole thing. Frankly, for me, I look at this as Amazon has invested into infrastructure, office space, all of these different pieces that they built in. They can't just sit there and have those places go empty and vacant while people are still doing their job at home. Maybe this is a helicopter manager type of approach to it, where they're going to be reviewing people's performance a little bit more closely. But frankly, I just don't understand from a business side of it, in this world we live in, where these tools are now accessible to us, why companies just don't throw in on the corporate and the commercial real estate side and allow people to incur the cost of higher internet, incur the cost of higher electricity that they're paying for themselves, and allow them to work, in a suit and tie, shirt with, basketball shorts on and flip-flops. As long as, you don't Jeffrey Toobin yourself during Zoom meetings,
I can tell you why, Mike.
I think you can get away with it.
So employeehood, this is going to be very controversial. Employeehood is slavery. It's about command and control, and the power shifting back to the employers, and they're going to take advantage of this. So most entrepreneurial business minds inside these big companies, the guys and girls who drive innovation for these big firms, are not going to like this. And this eventually, in my opinion, will drive a brain drain out, right? If you're creative and you can do it on your own, you're going to, which would leave behind the order followers who are not there to innovate. They're there to just not get fired. And so the companies that want to be so innovative will find that they're not over time. And let's not forget also that from the previous stories, LLMs are going to creep up and threaten salaries. So this is a matter of autonomy of the employee, which had the upper hand previous because of COVID, to now the power swings back to the employers, and it's about command and control. We want you in the office for why? You're right, Mike. There's no real good reason. The work was getting done, but you couldn't see your employees. You couldn't micromanage them. You couldn't control them. If anyone spends any time on LinkedIn, that is the main topic that keeps coming up again and again. People don't like. No one quits their job. They quit their bad boss. That's the phrase. Well, Amazon is trying to grasp at the old way of doing it. And I really think there'll be a pushback. I think this sparks entrepreneurship down the road. In the short term, this works, but we all know that these companies will ultimately lay off these folks for LLMs when they can. So I don't like the way this is going at all.
I think that in 6 months' time, we'll see an article about Amazon employees silent quitting.
Yeah, I agree with you, Michelle. And I think that they should, like a person, the three of us have run our own companies, and the three of us worked in corporate at some point, or at least a big company. Mike, I think you have. My point is, we can make a decision what we think we want to do for our own lives. Employees are trapped at this point. This is not a put down. There'll come a point where you push someone enough and they're going to be like, all right, I'm going to do it on my own. And I think that's what Amazon's going to start to find out. We'll see.
That's where small businesses thrive. That's where actually, economies thrive. This is that free market play in practice. People are not happy with their current setup. They're going to go and recreate their own. And let's not think that Amazon is out of the smoke and fire here either. They were more than happy to replace factory workers with robots pulling, shit off of shelves and putting it in a box. Yeah. So, they actually force people to get into this comfy lifestyle. But look, man, I'm not going to sit here and, throw stones from my glass house. 2020 rolled around and they forced everybody to stay home. I was the one on my soapbox, basically advocating that life must return to normal at some point. Normal in the sense of, you get up, you go to work, you come home, and you have your life that way. 5 days a week, you get your weekends. Again, my issue with this from this slavery side that you alluded to, is the demand of these employees that are, sort of at still even par when they still have all these, regurgitating underlying variables that are thrown back into the mix, such as their commute, such as, that dude with stinky breath that you got to sit there and have a meeting with, useless meetings that you're sort of dragged to that you could easily do on a 5-minute Zoom recap. All of these things, I think that, really, if you plug into an AI system and you say, how can I make my company more efficient? How can I make it more economically viable? How can I make my employees happy? I think the recipe is there. Why are we reverting back to something that we know sucks?
Mike,
it's not going to tell them to be in the office 5 days a week. I can assure you of that one.
But you are both assuming that the companies want what's best for the company.
Well, then what's the point? Like, first of all, who's making these decisions? As an investor into Amazon, I always want what's best for the company. I want to maximize my profits and minimize my costs.
And managers are different. So when I worked on Wall Street, I was writing a LinkedIn column weekly, which drove a whole lot of money into these companies, but the companies didn't want me to write it because I was building a personal brand. It was better for the company if I wrote it, but it was more control over Marc Angelos if they could tell me to stop. And so I learned that lesson was these companies, the investors, like the shareholders definitely want maximized value, but the people that run these companies are managers and they want control, and it's a mentality thing.
I don't think the CEO or the COO or some sort of high-level manager position gives a rat's ass about some social media dude that did or did not show up in the office for Amazon.
Oh, I assure you, at least in the investment banking community, you're not allowed to write free form without going through the marketing department.
What about the woman on TikTok who did she work for Chipotle or whatever it was, and she was putting stories on there about their burgers and whatever, and they told her that she had to stop there. She wasn't their social media team. She just worked in some division, and now
command and control.
Chick-fil-A I think she worked for Chick-fil-A, and now like she's a manager at McDonald's or something. Like, you know, like another company will go, hey, yeah, we want you to do that for us. So like it's that short-sightedness of that stuff is.
But why does she need to be in the office to say, hey, come in and sit down in my office so I could reprimand you?
Well, she worked in a branch, but yes, no, that's right.
So we're talking about remote workplaces, right? And how efficient they've become in such a short period of time. Again, you know, you call the pandemic whatever you want, but that was a situation that required a need in order for the business world to continue and operate. Obviously, there were some that just you can't work remote. Whether you're in a manufacturing facility, you know, something that requires you to be in person, a hospital, a supermarket, like you can't get these things done on a remote basis. But, you know, the company that's sitting there doing social posts for Coca-Cola, there's no need to even have the real estate in the office for somebody like that at this point.
You're still thinking about it from a business standpoint, Mike. I love you.
Well, forgive me. We're a business show. And like, you know, we're trying to understand how a business should properly set up their infrastructure and operations in order to move their company in a profitable direction and making it more investable.
The companies that are trying to quote unquote build brand, the last thing they want is someone who actually is inside the company and knows things to start posting willy-nilly.
But again, that same person can get reprimanded. That same person can be controlled outside of the four walls of the actual physical location.
Right. I agree. But my point is, it's a lot easier to do that if they're inside the four walls.
See, that's where I disagree. Yeah. All you got to do is just stop paying them. They'll get the hint.
So we had a question in the Bolt chat about, and shout out to all of the people in the Bolt Nation talking to us during our segments today. They asked for a link to the person. I have put the story from Marketing Brew in there, from Chick-fil-A employee Miriam Webb, who amassed tens of thousands of followers on TikTok by reviewing Chick-fil-A menu items, and they made her stop. So yeah, she doesn't work for them anymore. But anyway, I've put that story in so people.
So somebody asked what I slipped in your coffee to agree with me all day.
If you have an employee, if you run a big company and one of your employees amasses tens of thousands of followers on one of the social platforms, you put that employee in charge of your social platforms. You promote them and you fire your social marketing team, because the whole purpose of business is to find the most efficient, best way to do it. She clearly was doing it.
I got news for you. That person's going to be outdated too. When AI starts integrating into social media, guess what? They're going to be able to scour and figure out what are the best possible ways to interact and create engagement for their followers. AI is going to have a much better use case than any out of the college kid who's bitching that they have to sit in traffic.
Anyone that is going to compete on labor against a machine. This is the story of John Henry. I'm going to write a piece on this week. You're going to lose. AI allows other things beyond labor, and that's what people in companies have to start thinking about. So the roles of an employee, if you're an employee, you got to start thinking about, how can I get to the strategy end of this? And if you're managing a company, you need to be thinking, okay, who's our best employees and how do we duplicate this with a machine? It's awful, but that's the realities of business.
Well, it's been like that forever, right? Like, you got a guy that works at your company for 40 years and you got a kid coming out of college that you could pay at half the price. You know, what are you going to do with the guy that's been there that long?
Yeah.
You give him a gold watch and tell him hit the pavement.
All right. I'm going to remove our tin foil.
Just very quickly, in the Chick-fil-A story, they asked her to stop posting and she did. And a week or two later, she had a deal with Shake Shack and she reviewed their chicken sandwich.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Joke's on her. She's got to work on Sundays though.
All right. So the quick rundown of big takeaways for the week. The stories we hit were: number one, President Trump announcing a new crypto exchange. Number two, the blockchain market is expected to reach $403 billion in valuation by 2030. And number three, OpenAI now finally officially becoming a for-profit. Big takeaways that we need to know from this one. Michelle, what's your thoughts on the big stories this week?
So as we have advocated and supported and cheered on for 90, how many episodes are we now? 94 episodes. Blockchain will be the solution to a lot of problems in terms of authentication of data. And I think that the stories that we've talked about today, other than perhaps the Amazon AI one, conspiracy corner one about employees working in the office, I think other than that, I think that we will see that blockchain will get stronger and better, and we just need Mike to come up with a security thing so that it's much more secure.
Mike, no pressure. What are your thoughts on the big takeaways this week?
I'm lifting the crypto world off of my shoulders.
Send crypto to our wallet. Here's the address.
Yeah. MikeNeubauer.eth. So I think everything really summed up in the word that I was sort of throwing around all episode here, and that's efficiency, right? You know, even contrary to our last story, I really feel that businesses are always in a position to maximize their efficiency, increase their profits by lowering their costs. And whether that's utilizing this tool or using it as a replacement tool, which in my opinion is a mistake, I really feel that things like blockchain, things like AI, things like crypto even, are a solution. You can have an internal coin that you use as sort of an internal monopoly money within your own infrastructure. So I'd like to see the efficiency term used more in decision making. And I think if that's the case, we're going to see a much wider and faster adoption to this technology, much more than 6 years that were predicted. But I'm going shopping.
My big takeaway, I think, for this week was definitely the blockchain. The rise of blockchain is becoming a thing. People should start paying attention to it. On a personal level, I really like the Amazon story because I feel it's going to spark entrepreneurship. However, the purpose of this program is to give you guys insight into the digital media revolution, as we call it. Business is changing so fast, there's no place to learn about it, not in a relevant sense. And the purpose of this program is to try to give a forum for an intellectual conversation around the things, not what's happening, but what does it mean and how can we benefit from it? So I want to thank everyone for joining us. Shout out to the Bolt Nation. As always, we do appreciate the support, folks. We are here every Wednesday usually. And so this is an unusual day for us. But we'll be back next week. And final thoughts from my two co-hosts.
Follow us on Threads.
Have a great week.